Welcome back to week 14 of our fantasy football vidcast, getting into playoffs here finally. So,
Heck yeah.
We'll start with the state of everything, I guess.
You're
done.
You're playing for the toilet bowl.
Toilet bowl. I've got nothing left, but you're still in it.
I'm still in it. I'm still in that pot. I'm full steam ahead, hoping my team can hold up with Steven Jackson as a starting running back.
Yeah, that'll be
whether whether that happens or not will remain to be seen. I can't even speak.
Yeah, I know you're so excited for playoffs to get here that you can't. But in my other league, at least, I'm still doing quite well. So I've still got something to play for, and that means I've still got advice. I'm still looking at everything. So why don't you go ahead and start with hots?
All right, yeah, we'll get right into it. So for hots, this week I was kind of on the wire on who to pick. We try to stay away from guys who we've picked in the past. Obviously, if they're playing hot, they play hot.
Oh yeah.
But this guy had a big Trey Mason last week. He just torched the Raiders. He had 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards, running wild on them. So he's my hot for the week, and this is a guy, rookie, who at first, St. Louis started with that shared backfield, which everyone hates because then there's no guy who absolutely gets the bulk of the carries. But Mason has separated himself as that go-to guy for St. Louis, and so he's got that, he's ridiculously fast, first of all. And he's elusive enough, and I just think if you're in the playoffs, I stash him, start him. I think he can work some wonders for your team, as I'm hoping.
See, for me, I know you're going with Trey Mason, pretty obvious choice after this week as far as someone you can expect to be hot. For me, I'm actually going to go with a guy that not so long ago wasn't even playing in the NFL. He was actually a car salesman, as I'm sure you can get along to the lines of what I'm trying to say here. Josh Gordon's going to be hot. And there's a couple reasons, not just from last season, but we know what Josh Gordon is capable of. Miles Austin's out, injury reserve, done for the season. Jordan Cameron has basically been a bust this year with injury problems. Yeah. And also, if you have him, what else are you going to do that has more upside potential than he does?
Yeah, exactly. And even in standard ESPN leagues, he only put up only 7 points this previous week, but he's getting thrown the ball a ton. And some have speculated that's why Brian Hoyer has been getting picked off more because he's trying to force it to Gordon. But either way, I think you cannot sit Josh Gordon. This is a guy who last year led the league in receiving. So he's just absolutely dangerous.
Especially when it comes down to this week, one of the most crucial, the one that I can never seem to get past. Basically, you're at a point, probably, where if you've got Josh Gordon and you're on the line about playing him, you may as well play him, because if it pays, it'll pay big, and if not, you're probably going to lose anyways.
And even further along, assuming you even have Josh Gordon in the first place, because he's a player everyone just absolutely stashed in that first week. Don't forget, Cleveland has that quarterback controversy right now with Hoyer and Manziel coming in. So there's a very good chance that Hoyer will get or could be benched in the near future. Putting in Manziel, and Manziel, as we all know, has that running capability, and because he can run, it does work in the offense's favor because the defense has the game plan. Exactly. So you never know. If Manziel comes in, then Gordon might even light it up even more.
Exactly.
So moving from that to our nots, mine is another running back from the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals are a team that we're looking like Super Bowl contenders.
Definitely.
Carson Palmer gets injured, and now they're just free falling. And so my knot is their running back Ellington, who just sustained an injury. But even before then, standard ESPN leagues, he had 9 points, 5 points, 6 points, 5 points, and this previous league was 1 point. So I don't know what to say about the Cardinals. They don't have a quarterback who can stretch the field, so teams can stack the box, and it's showing with Ellington his diminished, what he's being able to do in the field.
It's a shame because you haven't seen the Cardinals be this Super Bowl contender for years.
Yeah.
And they finally start looking like it, and they get these crucial injuries. They get Carson Palmer going down. They get Ellington getting hurt. They're starting to take too many hits, and this week they're not going to have ease with what they're doing. But for me, not particularly, I would say, Super Bowl contenders, but Mike Wallace for Miami against the bad game. He's not a scorer is the problem. He's owned in 88.5% of leagues, which is too high. And if you keep him, and he's one of your go-to players, even if it works out this week, He'll only squeak by, and next week they got to play New England, and New England is not going to let Mike Wallace do anything.
Oh no. New England just played Green Bay, and they essentially shut down Jordy Nelson. Nelson had one long catch, but after that, Darrelle Revis just shut him down. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
So basically, with Mike Wallace, the whole point is with a bad pass defense, you may squeak by this week, but it's better to shop other options right now.
Definitely. And I think there's enough receivers out there that you can definitely plug in a guy instead of Mike Wallace.
It's definitely getting to be a point where it's a gamble because one loss can knock you completely out.
True. And of course, our last one is the pickup of the week. So my pickup is the Vikings Defense. I'm a big believer, unless I have a stout defense, I'm a big believer in just streaming defenses, just looking for whoever's playing Oakland, Jacksonville, or whatever. So this week, the Vikings are playing the Jets, who, if you're unaware, turned back to Geno Smith, who is a turnover machine. To boost chances, too, the Vikings are coming off a 25-point outing against Carolina. So obviously their head coach is Mike Zimmer, a defensive-minded guy. I just think the Vikings are a good streaming option behind St. Louis. I'm pretty sure St. Louis has been picked up already coming off last week. So if you're looking for a streaming option, definitely check out the Vikings.
And there are options with kickers and defenses where you can play week to week. Mm-hmm. And like you were saying, there's some wide receivers still out there. You can play around injuries. But when it comes down to it, a lot of these waiver wire pickups, you've probably got a lot of your lineup set, ready to go in the playoffs for one final swing, hoping to move on to the next round. But just in case, you always want to have these options. And for me, that option is Andre Williams. New York Giants, not going to be a terrific game this week, but he's owned in just over 30%. Rashard Jennings got injured. Yep. They expect him to be back, but there's a decent option. What if he comes out not running well? Yeah. What if he all of a sudden, you come time for the game and he doesn't go? To have him on your bench could be extremely valuable. I'm not saying that you're going to use him, but if you have him, I think it's worth the risk. It's worth the pickup.
A handcuff option.
Exactly. But kind of moving on from that, while I do think that picking him up would be good, we have to also kind of look at that game. And while we usually suggest a matchup to watch, we're gonna go with a matchup to avoid watching this week, which is the Tennessee Titans and the New York Giants. Two terrible, terrible teams. I think the other day I was listening to some of the guys on the Score talk about how the Titans are, if any team were to get dissolved UAB style, it would be the Titans. They have the lowest fan base, and they're just never. When was the last time in your life do you remember the Titans being overly successful with anything they really did?
Yeah, I mean they had. The Vince Young rookie year.
Exactly.
1 year. Almost to the playoffs, and they had that 13-3 season with Kerry Collins. Yeah. And after that, they had a losing season.
Exactly.
They've never had sustained success.
And the Giants, ever since Eli Manning was a Super Bowl playing winning quarterback, and now he's looked bad for the past couple of years.
Yeah, it's looking like that Giants core. I don't even know how many members are left over from that Super Bowl team.
Not very many.
Patriots. But it's just looking like that whole organization is just taking a downturn, which is really odd because the Giants for a number from the early 2000s. They were just always, you can count on them to be in it, But now it's just looking like, other than Odell Beckham Jr. on that team, no one stands out on that team. Eli's just been a turnover machine, and it's looking more and more likely that there's going to be some type of major change, whether that's firing Tom Coughlin or maybe even going and finding a replacement for Eli just to groom him.
Eventually, you've got to do something, and there's always the conversation about the Manning brothers and how different they are, and it's working from both ends. It's not just Peyton being great; it's Eli not being great. I remember last year I went to the Bears game when they played, and I watched him get picked off early.
Twice early.
One return for a touchdown, and it was.
Yeah.
It had to have been disheartening. I went with a Giants fan, that's my friend, and I don't know how he continues to do it, but the Giants are going to have to do something soon. But watching Tennessee and the Giants this week, I would not recommend.
Yeah, and to even give you a point on how bad it will probably turn out being, the Titans when they're playing the Texans, Mettenberger got injured. I don't even know his status for Sunday. But Jake Locker came in, a former first-round pick. his first pass was picked off by Houston. And on the Giants side, I believe they blew a 21-point lead to the Jaguars. Let that sink in. They blew over a 20-point lead to the Jaguars. So that alone should be how bad it is.
So if there's anything you turn your TV on for this Sunday, it's not that. Let's just leave it at that. But there are some things to watch.
Yeah, no, there's actually a very good select games that are going to be good from the Patriots and Chargers, probably one of them. But I think the most exciting one would be Seahawks and Eagles. Battle of the Birds, in Philly. So on one hand, you got the Seahawks, and obviously their defense, and Russell Wilson. On the other hand, you have the Eagles and their Chip Kelly offense, who it's interesting now because Mark Sanchez is playing probably the best football he's playing in his career in this offense. And now you're starting to see it out of Philly and elsewhere. Like, when Nick Foles is injured, so what happens when he comes back? Are they going to keep Sanchez? That Eagles offense just has so many weapons. It's crazy. So it's going to be your stereotypical highly ranked offense against your highly ranked defense. They're going to go head to head, and who's going to win that?
And it'll be interesting because the Eagles are very much in a situation that they were in last year, where Nick Foles was the one that came in and was kind of supercharging that offense, and now Mark Sanchez is the guy, and I think that's just a testament to, as you said, the weapons they have there. Because we watched Mark Sanchez at the Jets for a number of years, and it was nothing to be wowing about. But now that he's in Philly, and don't get me wrong, not to take away from anything that he's doing, their weapons allow him to slide in there, similar to how McCown slid in to the Bears last year, and then now is in Tampa doing just about nothing. And then on the Seahawks side, the defense is good, but I think they're a little weaker than last year. They're definitely looking a little worse than last year. I mean, but they still have a strong secondary. Run defense needs a little bit of work, but it should be interesting. And it also comes down to the divisional standings of everything. Eagles trying to stay ahead of the Cowboys. Seahawks trying to overturn the, as we said, battered and bruised Cardinals. Both of them are fighting for something. And fighting hard.
Eagles are still trying to fight for a number 1 seed, I believe. I think the Packers. I mean, they're both 9-3 right now, so they're still fighting for that seed. But yeah, no, I definitely agree. The Seahawks are not as strong as they were last year, defensively and offensively. I mean, you just look at their offense. I mean, Marshawn Lynch is banged up. Wilson isn't throwing. I mean, well, he never really threw for a ton, but he got the job done. But he's leaning more on his legs to extend drives and to get those first downs than he is passing. And you just their management of Percy Harvin, I think, says it all on how I don't want to say dysfunctional, but the offense wasn't all that what it could have been.
But I guess we'll just have to see how it turns out. So be sure, if you have any last-minute fantasy questions, to follow us on Twitter and tweet all of your questions and advice, input that we can give. We will give it. Until then, we hope you survive until next week.